Hello kids, have you ever imagined how these characters are drawn, how they are painted, how they walk, how they run, how they give expression? Well, that's called animation. Want to draw your favorite tune? Maybe some of you want to create your own character. Some of you maybe want to create a beautiful landscape. Maybe some of you want to write a beautiful story. Nothing can stop you doing that now. We are bringing to you the fun-filled cartoon camp, a joyful experience and exciting way of learning process of animation. So we will teach you how to write a script from an idea, how to create your own characters, maybe how to animate your superheroes, and how to create a beautiful landscapes, creating voices for your characters. Learn process of animation from professionals. Enroll today to a cartoon camp.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Scube TV, and we have a special guest today, Miss Alicia Morgan. She's from Miami. She's an immigration attorney. Welcome to the show, Miss Alicia Morgan. How are you today?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great.
Very good. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, like how you graduated and then how you got into the law, and what made you to go to the law and then especially immigration law business, please?
Yes. So I knew from a very young age that I wanted to become a lawyer because I wanted to help people. I think I was in the 7th grade. And then when I was in the 9th grade, I started to study Spanish, and that's what really excited me about immigrants. And so that's where I knew I wanted to help immigrants through being a lawyer starting, I think I was 14. And then I went to West Virginia University College of Law, and I was in their immigration clinic, and that's what sealed it for me that I wanted to help immigrants in immigration law. And now I have my own immigration firm in Miami. It's called Immigration Lawyers USA, and I've had my own firm about 6 years, and I've been practicing only immigration for about 10 years.
Wow, very nice. Very nice to hear that. I mean, you were decided to go to the law the 7th grade and then focus on the specialization of immigration when you were 14, which is very impressive. And we like to know more about you. Thank you. So today, I mean, there are many topics when you come into immigration. There are many things like immigration, family migration, and then the work permits, and the EB-5, and the EB-1, EB-2, H-1B, L-1, and the J visas, E visas, and F-1 visa, student visa. There are quite a few of them. K visa. There are many of them. I mean, probably the list will go on if we start telling them.
Right.
Me. Yes. I've been into the IT staffing business for the last almost 20 years. That's why I know a little bit of, I don't know the technical things, but I know, a little bit from the other side, of consuming it, not from the applying it. So I know a little bit about it, not much. But yeah, today, in this market, we have students, many students. Recently government has given an order and then taken it back. So which is kind of a little bit of, relief for the students. So we'd like to know a little more about the situation of the foreign students in US right now who are especially on the F1 visa in US. Can you tell us a little bit more about that one, please?
Yes. So when the coronavirus happened on March 13th, 2020, the USCIS issued a guidance that they were going to be more flexible with their in-person class requirements because of the coronavirus and the need for social distancing. And then on July 7th, immigration went back on their word and decided that and I think this was the Trump administration's goals to maybe push people to open the schools or maybe just get rid of foreign students. But in any event, it was to make people either choose to do in-person only classes, which very few schools are doing those these days because of the coronavirus, or they were going to have to leave the country. And they were allowing some hybrid model studies, but that's about it. And Harvard and MIT and some other schools sued the government, and even though they didn't take that to court yet, they did convince the government to back down on their initial goals, and they rescinded that July 7th order. So now it's still the March 13th order about immigration F1 students. They can still continue to do online studies. That's okay under the current situation with COVID.
Gotcha. Very nice. Thank you very much for telling us what's happening with the COVID, right? I mean, F1 students. If any of the students would like to ask any questions to Miss Alicia Morgan, I mean, you can post your question on the Facebook or YouTube. YouTube.com/SCubeTV or Facebook.com/SCubeTV or SCube Radio. Also, you can do that. If you have any questions, she will be happy to answer any questions you have related to the immigration. It will be only an opinion. It won't be a consultation. I mean, for any legal actual work and actual consultation, you may be able to go back to her or any other immigration lawyer you have. Just a disclaimer I have to give. So that's very nice. So how is that? I mean, the F1 students right now, they are, I mean, online classes. There is a requirement. Like, I mean, most of the schools are pushing for online classes. And whereas government says that, I mean, if you are online, they have made it a little harder. I mean, they can only have so many credits on the online, and they need to have the rest of the credits should be on the in-person classes. So can you elaborate a little more on that, if possible, please?
They were requiring some I have to look at the actual details, but they were requiring some programs needed to almost be all in person, and others it was okay to do a hybrid model. My understanding is that now they went back to the March 13th guidance, which is much more flexible about online classes. I'm afraid that the government it's still possible that they could do something else to come back at students, and for that reason, because Trump already issued the proclamation that was about green card holders to reduce green card holders coming in, and after that, people on work visas, and so students were the people he sort of left out, and I'm still afraid that he could do something else. So I still advise my students, if you have a way to stay here and not travel, that's better for you, because we don't know about the students who are outside the country or the students who are trying to get a new student visa. We don't know if those are going to get approved. So, and another problem is that the embassies are still closed right now. They have issued guidance that they intend to open them soon, and hopefully they will, but it's going to be a country by country basis. So we don't exactly know when those embassies are going to reopen.
Gotcha. So, I mean, yeah, in the F1, I mean, when you have the F1 student, I mean, let us assume that they are in the US and they have gone through the courses. Some schools, they do get the CPT in the beginning and OPT. Can you talk a little bit more about the CPT, please? CPT and OPT both. What is the difference between these two? Or what is CPT and what is OPT, and what is the difference between these two, please?
So the CPT is the curricular practical training, and that's usually during your studies. So it's for up to 12 months, and it would be related to the person's major. And so that would be part of their studies. The OPT is the optional practical training, and that's after they study. And that's also for 12 months. So it can extend their stay for 12 months.
Is extended. And I mean, today, I mean, with the COVID-19 situation, I mean, not many people are, I mean, employing, and not many people, offices are open. And so even if they get a CPT, they will not be able to utilize the opportunity, the legal opportunity to go and get some practical experience. And so what are their options? Can they defer the CPT, or
they could try to change schools, or see if there's another option for the CPT. That's something they should really try to work out with their their school, to see if there's a way that they can still do something, maybe distance learning. But the OPT is getting trickier, because there's a lot of people who are right now being laid off, and they're unemployed for a period of time. If you go over 3 months unemployed on OPT, you actually go out of status on your OPT, and you can lose the entire rest of the time that you had left. So they would cancel the OPT for that person, and they would need to leave the country or change to a different status.
Oh, okay, the 90 days rule for the OPT, which is like, I mean, if you are unemployed continuously for 90 days, your OPT will be cancelled. Oh, okay. Right. So is there any relaxation for that one during the COVID-19, or no relaxation for that?
I haven't heard about a relaxation on that. I don't know if you have.
Okay, but that's fair enough. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, what are the options? Let us say, I mean, I'm an F1 and I got an OPT and I didn't find any job for 90 days. So what do I need to go back and enroll myself into the school, or change my visa, or what are my options?
I recommend people who, if you're having trouble with your F, or specifically your OPT, to try to change to a B1, B2 visa. You can apply to change your status. The B1, B2 visa, even if you don't have a B1, B2 previously, you could apply to that from here, and that's going to protect you while the case is pending, and then hopefully you can still work things out with your OPT so that you could later change back to that.
So you should be able to switch back to the F1 again and then go back to the OPT. Is it possible if you go to the B1?
You would need to apply another change of status, but back to the F1.
F1. Oh, okay. So how easy is it on the B1? B1 as such is very difficult to get. I mean, even overseas, especially some countries like India or Bangladesh and other places, it will be challenging to get the just basic B1 for especially young people. So is it easy to transfer from F1 to B1 here in US?
So typically it's not, but because of COVID, they have actually lowered the standards a little bit, because a lot of people can't go back to their country. So even if they wanted to go back, there are travel restrictions. There are countries that aren't taking flights from the United States, and that's understandable because the COVID here is actually worse than anywhere in the world. And so there's a lot of problems with people being able to leave on time, and so that would be with the F1 or on H-1B or any of those other visas. And so for that reason, if they can file the change of status, they have a better chance here than if they were applying at the embassy, because they are going to take COVID into account. Now, they do still have to apply with the proof that they have enough ties to their home country and they have intent to return. So that's going to be on the applicant's responsibility to get enough proof of that, and the proof that what they're doing here is they're working out so they can go back to school or whatever. They need to explain what is their reason to stay here on a tourist visa right now.
Gotcha. So then it's a little tricky. So, okay, we will leave it the topic right there, and then we can talk some about different topics right now. See, again, in the same student, there are multiple. There are undergrad students are there. There are masters and people who go for the graduation and then graduate school, and also people who go for the PhD PhD programs. So some of the PhD programs, they also people under PhD program also have a dependence, especially a wife,
right,
or those things. So what is their status? Right now in the PhD and the F2 and F1 and F2 in that category.
Right. So a dependent for an F1 is called an F2. So that would be the spouse or the minor children of an F1. And on F2 status, children can study full-time, and spouses can study part-time. Right now, that was something recent that I read about, that they are able to study part-time. They cannot do any kind of work while they're here on the F2 status. They can volunteer as long as they're not going to receive any kind of compensation. So technically, people on the F2 can also travel. But I would advise right now that it's not a good idea right now to travel on the F1 or the F2, because people are getting stuck abroad. There's a lot of students that went home for a couple of months and they thought they were going to be able to come back for the fall semester, and it's not that easy. So that's what I would tell people, because there's a lot that's in the air with the students. I would be cautious about traveling if it's not a necessity.
Yeah, okay. So even though you have a F1 approved and if you have a visa stamped in your passport, even in spite of that, it is hard to come back. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not sure what Trump could do in the future on some sort of a proclamation against students. And also the coronavirus itself is trapping people, right? That there's people that go to their home country and then there are quarantines and there are travel restrictions and airlines are canceling flights. And if you're trying to come back by a certain date, like students need to for their fall semesters, it's just risky to travel if it's not necessary right now, because we're pretty close to to when the fall semester is going to start. And there's also, the virus is not getting better right now.
Okay, gotcha. So are you getting any cases? I mean, are you getting any calls from the students to your office? I mean, what kind of calls are you getting, if at all you're getting, from to your office?
Yeah, we're getting a lot of people who need to change status, or people who need to who would like to apply for certain visas for the first time. Unfortunately, we're unable to do new L visas and H-1B visas. Those are actually right now suspended until the end of the year. And the F one is actually a little bit up in the air about whether a new applicant can apply. I think they can right now, but I just don't know if the embassies are gonna be open and if they're gonna be able to get in time.
Oh, okay. Because we are not sure what's happening with the embassies overseas. So it's just, even though if you get an I-120, I-20 here, we'll not be able to go for stamping and then come back to the country or attend the classes for the school. Okay, and. I'm switching the topic from the students to the another one. If anybody would like to ask, I'm just going to announce one more time. If anybody would like to ask any question, please feel free to type your question at youtube.com/SCubeTV or facebook.com/SCubeTV, and Miss Alicia Morgan will be happy to answer those questions. Okay, and there is another hot topic. Every election year, during the elections time, this DACA is a big topic in the US. So can you help us out in understanding what is this DACA and what is its status right now?
Right. So DACA is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. It was initiated in 2012 by the Obama administration as a way to protect people who came here as minors and didn't, even choose to come in the country illegally and have studied here and are basically good citizens, that they would have protection from deportation and an ability to have a work permit. So that started in June 2012. And the program was going on for a long time, and it was a wonderful program that Obama administration started. But Trump, when he took over office, he had done some steps to end the program, but he didn't really explain very well the reasons that he was ending it. And for that reason, the U.S. Supreme Court recently came out a couple of weeks ago with a decision blocking the Trump administration's ending of the program, saying that the way he did it was arbitrary and capricious. And for that reason, the DACA program is reinstated. It's open. People can apply even for new applications, supposedly. So the issue is we had to wait a 25-day period in order for these, for the law to take effect. So that was actually only this past Monday. So we applied for some of our new applications for DACA, and we are yet to see what happens, because the Trump administration, USCIS, did state that they found the U.S. Supreme Court to have no basis in law, even though I don't understand that, because the U.S. Supreme Court is the law of the land. It's the highest ruling of the whole land. But in any event, there seems to be some confusion from that administration on the separation of powers. But so we have to see what's going to happen, because I'm sure if they are in fact rejecting these new applications for DACA, then there will definitely be more lawsuits filed.
Okay. So currently, whoever is in that status, they are safe. They are okay to continue whatever they are doing. And the new applicants, they need to wait. As you said, you applied few of them, but you're still waiting for the response from the USCIS, and then gotcha. Okay.
Right, but I would say that it's a good idea to file if you can now, because the Trump has stated that he's going to start all his efforts to end the program the correct way now that the Supreme Court has laid it out how to do it. Interestingly, Trump stated the other day when he was in the Rose Garden to a journalist that he had plans to create some sort of a deal for DACA recipients, and he left everything very vague, but that it was mentioned even that it could have a path to citizenship for DACA recipients, and I don't know if other people would also be included. So I would say, to everyone who can apply for DACA, if you haven't yet, do it now. because there may be a small window of time that you can do it, and hopefully even if we have to do lawsuits, usually a lot of those lawsuits are successful, and if there is some sort of a executive order that the president does, then those people would ideally be included.
Gotcha. Okay. So, hopefully, as you said, even Trump, because of the election year, they may find a solution for these people, and even eventually get a path to citizenship. Let us hope for that and see how it goes. So, what are the other what are the challenges? Let us say if somebody get a deportation notice, do they get a deportation notice, or what kind of how is the procedure? Like, let us say somebody is overstayed, or a visa got expired, and so what kind of notices do they get, and what are the options do they have?
Right. So if you're just overstaying a visa, it's not like an automatic deportation, usually, but you do get a notice. Usually, most of the time, you'll get some sort of a letter that states you need to leave in this amount of time. Now, if you don't leave in that amount of time, and then later you're detained somehow by the police, maybe it's just for driving without a license, you could in fact get placed into immigration proceedings, and if ICE presents documents against you of a notice to appear in immigration court, and at that point now you have to defend yourself from a deportation.
Defend yourself from deportation. So you need to go to the court and then argue, or somebody should represent he or she, and then argue on their behalf, and then try to win the case and then keep them here. It's a little hard battle.
We have to find a defense, exactly.
Okay. So what are the chances of defending those kind of scenarios? Is it are you able to defend them, or where do they end up most of the times?
So it really depends on the charges that are filed against the person, because oftentimes the government gets it wrong about the charges. Maybe they had a petty theft crime or some sort of a small misdemeanor, and it was miscategorized under the law as a crime involving moral turpitude, or that's a legal term. But basically the charges could be wrong, which sometimes we're able to get those cases dropped, to get a motion to terminate. But if the charges are correct, then we have to find a defense for the person. And most of those defenses involve if they have family members who can serve as a qualifying relative for them to qualify for maybe adjustment of status. If they came in lawfully and then they married a U.S. citizen, they'd be able to qualify for adjustment of status in the court. Or if they've been here over 10 years and they have a U.S. citizen spouse or children or a parent who would suffer in their absence, and they also have good moral character, they can apply for another defense called cancellation of removal. And then there are other applications that they could file for asylum if they have fear to return to their country. That has to be filed within 1 year of their entry into the country. So that's a little harder to get for some people, depending on when they were put into proceedings. But there's something similar called withholding of removal, or the protection of the Convention Against Torture, that they could file for in that instance.
Gotcha. Okay. And you brought in, multiple points or options to the people, who can, who ran out of their time on the visa, especially the spouse route. And that has been there for many people. Many been, not only from the immigration point of view, even the general U.S. citizens, they go out and they meet someone and they like it and they fall in love, and then they try to get together. So in those scenarios, I heard, some people, they get into the K visa in the beginning. That's like a fiance visa. So do you want to talk a little bit more on that thing? But today the chances are less because nobody is traveling, and but already existing relationships, probably it may be helpful, please. Yes.
Right. So the K visa, there's two different types. There's a K1, which is the fiancé visa that you mentioned, and also there's a K3, which is a spousal visa. And so both of those actually are exempt from the proclamation that the president made on April 22nd. So he specifically exempted the spouses of U.S. citizens, which are the K3, and the K1 doesn't apply because it's a non-immigrant visa, and the April 22nd proclamation was about immigrant visas. So those, just to let people know, because there seems to be a little confusion about that, but fiancé visas, they're still being processed. USCIS is still open. So I tell people that even though, we don't know when the embassies are going to reopen, We do know that it takes, for example, for a K1 visa right now, it's taking between 9 and 11 months, right? So it's not as fast as a K1 fiance visa used to be. So for that reason, we already know that it's taking a long time. If you're going to do a fiance visa, do it now. Start now, because there will be more delays as the COVID-19 crisis continues. There also USCIS is set to run out of money actually in a few more days, and in that case, if they don't get money from Congress, there may be closures. I know in the Miami office there was rumors of closing for the entire month of August, and maybe longer if they don't get the money that they're asking for from Congress. And we also know that they're expected to increase all of the fees across the board by sometimes 2 and 3 times. So if you have any applications you want to do now, do them now while the fees are lower, and also because the wait time is going to be long and you don't want to be at the end of a very long line.
Gotcha. Then the spouse visas, especially the spouse, when they come here on K3, and will they be able to file for green card immediately, or do they need to wait for some time to file for the family-based green card?
So the K3, the spousal option, they actually have a way to expedite their case as fast as a K1 by filing the I-129F in addition to the I-130. But if they're going to do that option, they need to file the family-based case first. If they file the fiance and afterward, their case will be rejected. So it's important that they file in that order if it's a spousal visa. But they can expedite the case that way, so that they can either come in at the time of a K1, and basically they would be able to do their adjustment of status inside the United States, or if the K3 is actually processed in time, they may be able to get their green card at the embassy and come in as a green card holder already. So there are a couple more options if they do take that route.
Okay, one more little tricky situation. Some people have been in this situation for a long time. So please see if if you have any options for them. There are some people who are on the green card here, and if somebody is on a citizen, and then he gets married overseas, then he has an option to get them their K3. Or directly file for the green card and bring them. But if somebody is on green card, he's not a citizen of US. So if he gets married overseas, so what are his chances of bringing their spouse over to US?
So typically when the spouse who is petitioning is a resident, a lawful permanent resident, instead of a United States citizen, there's a wait. It's called the F2A visa. So that visa, it's usually a 2 to 3 year wait. But I will say that lately, the last few months, it's actually been current for those visas. So that means that they're actually processing them just the same time period as someone who's a US citizen. There is no line. And so that's good news. If you have someone who is a resident trying to file for their spouse, they should file now while the visa is available. And if that's, they do still have to wait for the regular processing of the visa, but it will be much faster as long as the visa remains current when they get to the consular processing phase.
Gotcha. Okay, that's fair enough. Thanks for the input. I was not aware of this F2 visa. For the green people on the green card. I've been seeing people who are on the green card. They delay their marriage till they get citizenship, or they get them through another visa, the student visa or H1B, and then come here, and then once they come here, they try to adjust the status. I've seen those kind of cases, maybe because of the longer period to get the F2 visa.
Right, the period of wait. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what kind of, today, H1Bs are suspended, and then many students are in different situation. So what kind of cases are USCIS is processing nowadays? Are they where is the maximum load for them?
Well, I will say that the USCIS in-person appointments only recently reopened, and they're seeing for interviews, they are reopened for, right now they're focusing on the citizenship cases, probably because we're in an election year. But that's the focus for the in-person interviews. The USCIS actually never closed as to processing applications. So all sorts of applications are being processed. If they've already been filed, previously, as far as before the June 22nd date, then H-1Bs were technically being processed, but there's a wait, and there's a lottery system, and that doesn't start until this coming April. But as far as Ls and those other visas, those are being, right now they're on hold because of the suspension until the end of the year. But USCIS never stopped processing applications, so people should continue to file their family petitions. Their asylums can still be filed if the person's inside the United States. All applications are still technically being processed by immigration, but it may take longer.
Gotcha. Okay. So, it's work visas. We've been hearing one more thing about the 240 days. Somebody today the H-1B visas are also different situations. Many people are getting laid off. Some people are getting laid off while they're on the work on H-1B. And so, what are their options? Is there any relaxation for them, or are they subject to the 90 days or 60 days rule, and they have to go back to the country? What is the status on the H-1B if they come out of the job?
Yeah, so if they had filed for an extension while before their H-1B expired, then they get basically a 240-day grace period, sort of an extension on their current visa that they had. So that's something that's helpful to a lot of immigrants. It is limited to the same employer, so they can't switch to a different employer. And also, if it was an L visa, something like that, they are under the same requirements as they were under the initial visa rules.
Yeah, there was a question, I think, but we just covered it. What if the name of the person who is asking is Prabhakar, and he said, what if my job ends? Do I have to leave the country? I think you just answered it. If you want to say it again, yeah, that's fine.
If their job ends?
Yeah, what the question is, Mr. Prabhakar's question is, what if my job ends? Do I have to leave the country?
Yeah, so he could, if he was on the H-1B, I'm not sure what he was on, he could have filed for an extension of the H-1B, and he would sort of get this 240-day extension while the case is pending. So that's something that he could try to do. Or alternatively, he could try to switch to maybe a B1, B2 visa if that's something that he's not able to leave at the time, something like that related to his ability to go back to his country. He could try switching to a B1 or B2 visa.
B1 or B2 visa. Will they be able to switch to the student? Suppose some people, I have seen people, on the job, they come here and they lose their job or they change their mind. They would like to go back and pursue some higher education again or some other field. And can they go back to the F1 if they lose their job, and then can they switch from H1 to F1 today?
Usually there's a time distance, that the problem in immigration is the time that it takes to switch statuses sometimes is a problem. So it's often advised that the person does an extension of status in addition to a change of status, so that they don't go out of status while they're waiting for that decision on the change of status. So that's something that is happening a lot right now, because to get a decision on a change of status, for example, it's taking between 8 to 10 months. And as you know, it takes, we only get 6 months for like the B1, B2 or for other types of visas. So it's advisable to do an extension of status in addition to the change. In a lot of different applications, it's advisable, especially right now when the wait times are long.
Gotcha. And some people, when they lose their job, in the sense there are two ways. A little bit of you might have heard about the bench concept, right? In the H-1B, technically there should not be bench. But is there any is there any scope or any relaxation during the COVID-19? If they're not getting paid, will they be allowed to stay even though their visa is valid? Their visa on the paper is valid, but they don't have the actual job where they are able to make money. And so what is their situation? Are they out of status, or is there any 90 days rule or 60 days rule before they get another job, or what are their options here?
Yeah, I think that they would have that 90 days rule. If they could try to correct the situation sooner than 90 days, then they would probably be okay. But I haven't heard anything beyond that about COVID.
No, anything about the COVID. So during the COVID, no relaxations or nothing. Okay. Only what I heard is if somebody loses their job or loses their H-1B status, are they allowed to stay in the country till the things improve on the flights situation? They can get the flights back to their country. I heard. I mean, they are allowed to stay in the country. Is that true, or what is your say on that?
I would advise those people to try to get a change of status or apply to get a change of status to the B1 in that situation, just in case. Because there's a lot of times that, the government will say that they're going to do something. And I would always rather a person be in status on paper, have the proof that they're in status than be relying on the government's kindness.
Okay, gotcha. I mean, at least, tomorrow sometimes, they may forget the port of entry. The people may not see all the details, and then they may simply reject your case, or because you defaulted on this particular time. Even though you had relaxation from the government, there are chances. I agree with you on that particular point. Yeah.
There's typically like a 60-day grace period afterward that they could be here if they had to be, but I would just be cautious because of the COVID situation. We're not certain that they could actually leave sooner than the 60 days. So that's why I would say it's better to try to get a change of status, because things are very in the air about what's going to happen on travel.
Okay. And let us say somebody has an H-1B extended, their H-1B extended, and but they don't have a visa stamped in their passport. I mean, is there any way can they get it extra stamped in the country? I mean, earlier it used to be. My knowledge is long, very old data. I mean, talking about 10 or 15 years back. I mean, where you were able to send the passport to the St. Louis, and you get it stamped locally within the country. But nowadays people have been going to Canada or Mexico, other places. But I mean, with the borders being closed now, there is no option for them to get their visa stamped on the passport. So what do you say? They just wait till things open up, or is there any other option for them?
Right, yeah, because it's not easy to go to Canada or Mexico right now. So I'm actually not certain. I think it would probably be better for them to, in that case, to try to do a change through the mail with USCIS of an extension of status, rather than trying to get their stamp restamped. They could just try to file it through USCIS and the I-539, an extension of their status.
Gotcha. Okay. And do you want to cover any other topic today? I know there are maybe immigration has a whole lot of things for sure. I would like to request your time one more time to just talk about the H-1B. H-1B itself, H-1B or L-1, any employment-based immigration itself is a big topic. There are many questions. I mean, for sure we'll come back to you another time. But do you want to cover anything right now? Do you want to say anything?
Yes, so there's a lot of the visas have been put on hold right now for work, but the E2 visa is still open, and there are many people who have double citizenship. So sometimes it's easy for them maybe to obtain another citizenship through their grandparent or something like that. We have some clients who are able to obtain Italian citizenship, which apparently it's not as hard as some other countries to obtain citizenship. So if they were able to if they have double citizenship or they have citizenship in one of the countries that's in the E2 treaty, they can get another work visa that is actually, it's an investment visa, but it is much less costly than the EB-5. Usually the minimum amount that people invest is about $100,000. But it's actually usually in a lot of cases cheaper than than an L, and some other cases that it's cheaper than other visas that they expect. So it's a good option for a lot of clients. If you've been blocked by the H-1B or the L and you wanted to try to come in on a work visa, the E-2 is a good option. You can look at ways to see if maybe you could get a double citizenship if you don't have one already, or if you're not a country, if you don't have a citizenship that you need.
Yeah, that's a good point on E2 visa, but not every country, people from every country will be able to apply for E2 visa. If I'm an Indian, I will not be able to apply for E2 visa. And only some countries, they can apply for E2 visas. So which countries do you know that? I don't expect you to remember all the countries' names, but at least a few countries, probably who are allowed to apply for E2 visa. So
Yeah. So it's I keep this under my desk. It's this list.
Very good. Okay.
But basically, it's a lot of Latin America, Argentina. Let's see, Bangladesh is on there, Belgium, Bolivia, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Estonia, Ethiopia. Interestingly, France, Germany, Honduras, Greece, Italy, Japan, Jordan. There's a lot of countries, even Mexico. So there's people that may have a way. Pakistan is actually on the list. People may have a way to get a double citizenship, maybe through their family, or I'm not sure if it's there are some places that you can get a citizenship through living in the country for a period of time. So there's something that they could look into, other options. Obviously, it's a little tougher to travel to different countries right now for the same reasons, but it's something to consider. And I would just say that people should try to, if you're already here, do an extension of status perhaps, see if you can, or get to a B1, B2 visa so that you're not out of status while we're waiting to see what can happen to open up more work visas in the future.
Gotcha. Thank you very much, Alicia Morgan, and good luck with all the things what you do. And we would like to have you one more time very soon. Sure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, and I'd be happy to be back. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.
Nice rest of the day. You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.